Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today for this wonderful webinar known as the Skilling Gap Behind the AI Adoption Boom, a strategy briefing for European training providers. I'm Srishti and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to join us from across Europe and beyond. Over the past 2 years, we have witnessed unprecedented AI adoption across organizations. However, while AI usage is accelerating rapidly, workforce capability development is not keeping pace. Recent data shows that while AI tools are becoming part of everyday work, formal AI training remains limited. This creates a significant challenge for enterprises and an even greater opportunity for training providers. We have an insightful discussion planned for the next 60 minutes. And before we start, I would like to share a few housekeeping notes with all of you. The webinar is being recorded, and we would encourage you to submit your questions through the chat or Q&A panel throughout the session. We'll be having a dedicated Q&A session towards the end. Now, let's just get started. And before I move forward, I would love to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. James. Mr. James is working as the general manager at Southern. He is also a seasoned learning and transformation leader with over 25 years of experience in professional education, workforce capability development, and AI-driven learning initiatives. He specializes in helping organizations and training providers build future-ready AI learning strategies focused on practical implementation and measurable business outcomes. Recognized for his expertise in human-centered AI and enterprise learning transformation, James frequently speaks on AI adoption, role-based capability, frameworks, and the evolving future of workforce readiness. Now, without a further ado, I would like to hand over the stage to James. James, over to
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you. And thank you everyone for giving me an hour in the middle of your week. I know exactly what a Wednesday afternoon and early evening looks like, and I hope you gain some value from today's session. It was, of course, designed and will be speaking to those of you who operate training businesses or deliver educational services to clients in Europe. I can see from our registrations that we've got several attendees from outside of Europe, and the basis of what I will be covering is universal, albeit with different numbers. So even if you're not operating in Europe, this session is still highly relevant for you. So let me tell you how I ended up here, because it started more or less by accident. I live just outside of Copenhagen in Denmark. And a few weeks ago, I had the news on in the evening, and a segment came on about how Danish workplaces are actually using AI. And there was a number in that that made me sit up. I'll show you that number in a moment, but it nagged at me enough that I pulled the actual study that was covered the next morning. And then I started asking whether this was just a Danish thing or whether it was representative across Europe. And it turned out it is. And the further I dug, the clearer it got that this isn't really a story about AI at all. It's a story about a gap, and the gap lands squarely in your world. So that's what this session is. The first in a short series we're calling the capability question. I'm going to walk you through what I found, and then we'll work out together what a training provider actually does about it. And 2 bits of housekeeping. I'm going to be running a few short polls as we go along. One of them just where you type into the chat, and a couple of multiple choice ones. And they'll genuinely steer where I take this. So please get involved. And if you have any questions during the session, drop them in the chat whenever you think of something. And my colleague here is watching it, and we'll get to them at the end. Right. So here's the deal, because you've all sat through enough webinars that turned out to be one long sales pitch. And this isn't as long sales pitch. The session is an honest read on where AI adoption and the skills gap actually sit across Europe. What that means specifically for training providers like you. And over the next 40 minutes or so, with these couple of quick polls, we're going to have a clear next step at the end. What this isn't is a product demo, a sales pitch in disguise, or a generic AI is going to change everything keynote. and it isn't a commitment to buy anything beyond listening. However, what I'm going to talk about does point to the value that AI Certs has within the AI adoption landscape. But I'm going to get to that at the end, when hopefully, if I've done a good job, you'll be able to connect the dots and start thinking about how all this fits into the conversations you're having with your customers. Having said all this, the research and the thinking earn their place on their own. If you take nothing else, you'll leave with a sharper read on your own market than when you arrived. That's the deal, and I think it's worth staying for. Um, so let's get to what actually triggered me to build this session. And here it is. This is the number I mentioned a couple of minutes ago in the study. This study behind the news segment that I was watching comes out of Copenhagen Business School, which is one of the premier business schools in Europe and holds a Triple Crown accreditation, which only 1% of business schools in the world have, and that's their credibility. And the study that they conducted is properly representative. Several thousands of people cut by levels of seniority. And that last part is what makes this study actually sing. So look at the gap here. 70% of leaders are using AI in their job, but only 32% of employees are. That's a 38-point gap between the people that are setting the direction and the people actually doing the work. And the number that made me sit up is just that 1 in 10 employees has had any formal training in how to use AI. So the picture of what this means on the ground is that the boss is all in, the team is half in, and almost nobody has been taught a thing. So people are learning AI by copying whoever sits nearest and hoping for the best. And the same study found that 84% of companies have no AI strategy whatsoever. And nearly 4 in 10 employees don't even know whether their organization has a strategy. That is the textbook definition of shadow AI. And we'll come back to that hard in a few minutes, because it's why this has stopped only being a learning and development conversation and started being a CISO, or Chief Information Security Officer, conversation. The risk isn't that people aren't adopting AI, it's how they are adopting it, how they're using it, which tools they're using, and have they been mandated by the company. AI only works off of data. So if people are pumping company data into non-mandated tools, that is essentially the same as opening the door to the company's headquarters and having an open day for the public. Now, my first thought is probably your first thought as well. Fine, but this is Denmark. It's pretty small. So I did some thorough research on the landscape throughout Europe. And for those of you that are joining from the Middle East or Gulf countries, I've also done research there as well. And if you're interested, reach out after the session. I'd be happy to share it. So the question is this a Danish quirk, or is it the whole of Europe? And this is what I found. And it's the reason I stopped treating this as purely curiosity. Denmark isn't behind on AI. On the European Commission's own figures, it's the most AI mature economy in the EU, with 42% of companies using AI, which is the highest share anywhere in the European Union. So when I show you a gap in Denmark, I'm showing you the gap in the best prepared country, not the worst. And the worker numbers line up almost exactly. The Commission's Research Centre, the European Commission's Research Centre, surveyed 70,000 workers across all 27 member states and found that 30% of EU workers now use AI at work. So Denmark's employee figure is around 32%. So in other words, Danish employees are pretty much bang on the European average. So it's not a local story. The UK, now that that's strictly speaking not part of Europe anymore, is on the same curve. Around a quarter of UK businesses now use AI, which is under the European average. And when you ask what's holding the rest back, the answer that keeps coming up isn't the technology, it is skills. Every market in Europe is somewhere on this same line. Adoption is climbing fast, training is flat, and the constraint everywhere is capability rather than access. So now I want to get a read on your part of all of this. And all you need to do is type a letter into the chat box. So it's a nice simple one to start. And the question is, where are most of your enterprise customers with AI right now? You just need to pick one that's closest to what you're hearing, and drop A, B, C, or D in the chat. And we'll leave it a couple of secs. We got an A, we got a B, we got another A. Okay, good. This is usually what we see. Okay, super. So we've got a spread there across A's and B's. So experimenting informally with no real structure, or they're rolling the tools out, but the training is lagging behind. That's helpful, and it feeds into this session. Um, so before we go any further, just a quick word on me, who's dragging you through all of this, and then we'll get into what all of this actually means. As Shrishti mentioned at the beginning, my name's James. I run the commercial side across EMEA for SADA, which is the parent company of AIerts, and our other brands, which are all connected to AI skilling, capability, corporate AI adoption, and governance. I've spent over 25 years in professional education and certification, mostly in your world, selling and delivering training solutions across EMEA and North America. I've worked in the AI and emerging technology space for 8 years. And within that time, I've also been a partner and successfully exited an AI transformation company in Denmark. Throughout my career, I've worked on competency framework policy standards. I've consulted for Carnegie Mellon University in the US. And over the last year, I've traveled the world when invited to speak at conferences about human-centered AI and the importance of focusing on how humans collaborate with AI. I'm also the creator of the RapFeet context engineering framework, which is designed for non-technical knowledge workers. And I sit on the credentials and standards board of the International Coaching Federation. And I mention this because it's the reason I care so much about what makes a certification actually worth something, as opposed to a certificate you print out and forget. And that distinction turns out to be the whole game here, and we'll come back to it. Right, that's me. Let's get back to the problem, because this is where it starts getting interesting. Now, I want to be careful with the language here because I think we get this wrong, and getting it wrong costs us money. We keep calling this a skills gap, but I don't think it is, or at least not only. A skills gap is when you've got people who can't access a thing. And that's not what's happening right now. The tools are everywhere. They're free or nearly free, and people are using them with real enthusiasm. Access isn't the problem. What's actually happening is the exposure is running miles ahead of the capability. People are using AI, but they're using it without judgment, without any real sense of where it's safe and where it isn't, and without the role-specific knowledge that turns a clever toy into reliable work and real value. So the organization looks at its adoption numbers, which is usually how many licenses are being used and how many prompts are being entered into a tool. And they see these numbers climbing and quietly tells themselves that the AI program is going well. Meanwhile, the quality of what's actually happening and what's being produced is all over the place, and nobody is measuring it. So when I say that this is a capability problem disguised as an adoption story, that is what I mean. The dashboards are green, but the reality underneath them isn't. And the reason that matters commercially is very simple. You can't sell a solution to a problem that the buyer doesn't believe they have. So part of your job as training providers and part of the value you bring is helping the customer see the gap that they're currently celebrating as a success. And we'll come back to that without making them feel silly. So here's where it gets very interesting, because the gap doesn't open one opportunity. It actually opens two, and speak to two completely different people inside your customers. The first is governance. When people using AI without training, the organization is carrying risk that it hasn't counted. Data going into tools that it shouldn't. Decisions getting made on outputs nobody checked. And in Europe specifically, AI literacy isn't just good practice anymore. It's becoming an expectation under the EU AI Act. So there's a whole conversation here with the risk and compliance side of the house. The people who don't normally buy the training but who need to have structured AI readiness as a governance control. For most of you, that persona is a brand new buyer. The second is performance. Even where AI is being used perfectly safely, shallow capability means shallow results. People are getting the obvious 20% out of these tools and missing all of the rest. The organization that turns adoption into genuine role level capability separates itself from the company that just handed out licenses and hoped. That's the conversation with the business leaders, the ones chasing competitive advantage. So it's the same gap, but with two different doors that you can walk through, one marked as risk and one marked as advantage. And a training provider who can walk through both of these doors is selling into a much bigger room than the one who only sells to L&D or IT. So keep that in your head because it quietly changes who you should be pitching to. So let me make the risk side concrete because abstract risk doesn't sell. Specific risk sells. Four things are showing up right now on the desks of the people that you sell to. Governance risk, where AI use is expanding faster than the rules and the oversight, so that leaders honestly don't know what their people are doing with these tools. Data security exposure, where employees are pasting things into AI models with no idea what's safe. And that isn't a tooling problem, it's a training problem. Role performance inconsistency is where two people in the same job get wildly different results from the same AI because one has been shown how to collaborate with it and the other one is still guessing. And then there is the competitive drag, which is the quiet one, which nobody notices at first. This is where the company looks busy and modern on AI, while the capability gap widens underneath and then shows up 18 months later in revenue numbers that nobody can quite explain. Now, here's the move for you. Every one of those is a live, painful, board level worry that your customer already has. You don't need to manufacture demand. You need to connect what you sell to a problem that's already keeping someone awake at night. The providers who win this are the ones who walk in talking about that list, not about their course catalog. So this brings me to a question I want your answer on, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Before that, I want to put a sharper point on the governance side, because this is the bit that tends to wake up, wake your customers up. Go back to that gap for a second. Far more people are using AI than have ever been trained to use it. So what does an untrained person do when they want a tool that a company hasn't given them? They use their own accounts, their personal ChatGPT, their own Gemini, and other tools on company work. Netscope track this across millions of users, and the numbers are stark. Nearly half of everyone using AI at work, so 47%, is doing it through personal accounts the company can't see or control. The volume of sensitive data going into these tools doubled in a single year. And shadow AI is now tangled up in 6 out of 10 insider data incidents. So here's the uncomfortable part. As the models get better and people lean on them harder, that exposure climbs with them. It doesn't settle down. And look at what's actually leaking: source codes, regulated data, customer and health records, intellectual property, passwords that are sitting inside pasted configuration files, all of it walking out through tools nobody signed off on. So here's the line I'd give you to carry into a customer. A chief information security officer should be every bit as worried about untrained people using AI badly as the CEO is excited about using it at all. And banning the tools doesn't work. People just get better at hiding it. The only thing that genuinely reduces the risk is teaching people to use AI properly, which is to say training, mindset, and behavioral changes when it comes to continuous learning. That makes training the cheapest security control on the table. It's a very different conversation to walk into than would you like some AI courses? And it opens up to a buyer most training providers never even get near. So now back to the question that I want to get your feedback on. And this one is, you're going to need your mobile phone here because you're going to have to yeah, scan that QR code with your mobile. Once you've scanned that, you can put in your name or put in anonymous, whatever, if you don't want your name up there. And then click on one of the multiple choice answers here. The question is, when customers ask you about AI training, what are they really asking for? Is it a quick awareness session to tick a box in their training policies? Is it because they're help in reducing AI risk and governance exposure? Real role specific capability they can measure? Or are they not asking yet? And that worries me. Okay, amazing. Getting some things in here. Pretty broad. So we're equally split. Quick awareness sessions, role specific capability they can measure, and they're not asking me, and that worries. Good. So, I mean, what can we can denominate out of this? The quick awareness sessions. This is a real trusted advisor job, right? To go into the organization and understand what they're actually trying to get out of AI, and to work with them. That generic one size fits all doesn't really move the bar. Real role specific capability that they can measure. That's great. We're going to get to that. And if they're not asking yet and that worries, that's certainly a reason to pick up the phone and start talking about some of the things we're covering here. Super. Thank you for answering those questions. So let's talk about the one of those answers there, which was the tick box one size fits all session, the generic AI awareness training, because something's going on with my deck here. 2 seconds. Yeah. Because there's a lot of this one size fits all generic training about. And I want to be fair about it before I start taking it apart. It does have some real things. It introduces the AI vocabulary, so people stop being frightened of the words. It builds a bit of broad familiarity, and it signals to the workforce that leadership in the company is taking all of this seriously, and that has value on its own. So if you're selling this type of training, one size fits all generic awareness training, I'm not telling you to stop. It does open doors. But if you're honest with yourself about what it doesn't do, it doesn't build capability in a specific job. The marketeer still doesn't actually know how to use AI as a marketeer. It doesn't validate anything. There's no portable proof that the person can do the thing that they've just learnt. It's just a completion record. So, and this goes stale very fast because a course that was written 6 months ago is describing tools that have changed twice since then. And the big one, it gives the enterprise buyer no real confidence that their workforce is ready because attendance isn't competence, and everyone in the room knows that. So awareness training opens the door. However, it can't close the gap that we've been talking about. And the reason that distinction matters so much commercially is what's happening to the market because of it, which is honestly the most important slide in this whole session. So the AI training market is splitting into two cleanly, and the split is happening faster than most training providers have clocked. On one side, you've got the awareness-led market, generic literacy workshops sold on completion numbers and very easy to launch. Easy to launch is exactly the problem because easy to launch means easy to copy. Everyone is piling in. The content is roughly the same wherever you buy it. So the only thing left to compete on is price. That market is commoditizing right in front of us, and the margins are heading only in one direction. On the other side, you've got the capability-led market, the role-based pathways tied to actual jobs. This means validation through recognized certification. So there's real proof at the end. It's harder to build, and that's the good news, because harder to build is harder to copy and easier to defend. The buyer can see the difference, so the pricing holds up, and it positions you as the serious provider rather than the cheap one. So here's the uncomfortable bit. Right now, most providers are drifting by default into the first market because it's the easier sale to get revenue in this quarter. And every month you spend competing on awareness awareness training, is a month you're not building the position that actually defends your business. The capability market is being built right now, this year, and the people building it are now the ones who will own it. So the real question isn't whether the market is splitting, it's which side of the split your business is going to be standing on. And let me show you what it actually takes to stand on the right side. If capability is the category that wins, then you need to know what a capability offer is actually made of, because it's a lot more than good content. There are 5 layers, and the defensibility comes from having all of them, not from any single one. The first is role-based certifications mapped to real job functions, not generic modules. The second, a vendor-aligned curriculum that stays relevant as the tools shift underneath it, because a static course is a depreciating asset from the day it's written. The third, a credible certification and verification. So there's real checkable proof at the end and not just an attendance certificate. The fourth, standardized delivery and assessment. So you get the same outcome, whether it's delivered in Lisbon, Berlin, London, or Riyadh. And this is the thing that lets you scale without quality falling apart. The fifth, partnering, partner enablement, and go-to-market support. So growing the business doesn't mean rebuilding the whole machine every single time. So notice what I'm saying here. Defensibility comes from infrastructure, not just content. Anyone can write a good course these days. Very few people can stand all 5 of these things up. And that's precisely why the ones who do get to charge proper rates and sleep at night. Now, building all 5 from scratch is a multi-year, genuinely expensive job. Most training providers can't justify it, and honestly, they shouldn't try, which is the obvious place for me to show you where AIerts fit in. And this is the commercial bit, and I'm going to be straight with you about it rather than dress it up. The thing I want you to take away is this. We're not asking to step in front of your customer. The relationship stays yours. The market trust you've built is yours. Your positioning in the verticals that you work in, your commercial strategy, the way you deliver, all of that stays exactly where it is with you. And that's the part that's genuinely hard to build because you've already built it. What we bring is the infrastructure underneath, the 5 layers we just walked through, so you don't have to build them yourself. There are over 70 role-based certifications already mapped to jobs with AIerts. A curriculum we keep current, so you're not maintaining it. Proctored certification and digital blockchain verification of credentials, which is your credibility layer. Train the trainer and a partner portal, courseware, learner analytics, all the delivery machinery, and co-branded go-to-market support, so you're not marketing from a standing start. The line I'd ask you to remember is the one at the bottom of the screen. You keep the relationship, we strengthen the offer. This isn't a franchise where you vanish behind the brand. It's a way you walk into your customer with a capability-led proposition you couldn't otherwise afford to build tomorrow under your own name. That's the whole pitch, and it really is the whole pitch. But let me place us on the map, because that's probably a question you have as well. Some of you will be asking, how is this actually different from what you already sell, or from the nearly free certifications that the hyperscalers are pushing? And here is the honest answer. On the left side of the screen, the established names, CompTIA, ISACA, and the like. Good brands, broad IT coverage, and some of them you may already sell. But they weren't built AI native. They aren't role specific. They move slowly. And this is fatal in a field that shifts every single week. On the right, the hyperscalers, the Microsofts, AWS, Google, strong, deep certifications, but locked to their own stack and built around the product rather than the person's job. We sit deliberately in the middle, vendor aligned so that the content stays current, role focused so that it maps to an actual job, and independently proctored and credentialed so the proof holds up when an employer checks it. That middle ground is the bit nobody else is occupying cleanly, and it's exactly the bit your enterprise customers are asking for. And when I say role-based, I mean it literally. because this is the bit that separates a real capability offer from a generic AI awareness course. Pick any function in your customer's business: the boardroom, finance, marketing, HR, engineering, security, customer service. There's a certification mapped to that role and a pathway. So when you walk into a customer and they say, we need our finance team AI ready, or our customer service people are all using AI and we've got no idea if they're any good at it, you have a specific validated answer for that exact role, not a one size fits all workshop. The question I'd have you put to a customer is the one along the top. Which roles in your business need to become AI ready? The moment they start naming roles, you stop selling a course and started solving a capability problem, function by function. And that's a far stronger commercial position to be in. And it's only possible because the portfolio goes deep. So we're on to the last question here, and then I'm going to get out of your way and we can get onto some Q&A. And we've got the QR code thing coming up as well in a second. Yeah, when thinking about your own portfolio that you're delivering today, which is the closest true for you? A bit of a typo though. So what is true for you here? Are you actively looking to add validated AI certifications? Are you exploring it and want to understand the model? Or you're only here for the market view and not ready to move yet? And that's also fine. So there's no wrong answer here, but I'd be interested to see where you all are as you've attended this session, or it triggered you to attend it. Super. Well, I'm glad that there is a potential out of these three for us to have a further dialogue about all of this. And just leave it for a second, see if there's any more answers. Good. Okay. Um, so let me land the plane here. The market is moving from awareness to capability. That move is happening this year, not in some comfortable distant future. And the providers who move with it early are the ones who will set the price rather than chase it. The gap that Danish number pointed to is real, and it's large, and it's sitting inside the customers you already have today, and it's across Europe. What I'm offering you isn't a contract, it's a conversation. 30 minutes where we hold your portfolio up against what we've watched and worked through, and what we've watched fail. And we work out honestly whether there is a fit worth building on. So there's no slides and no pitch. I've done this pitch. If that's useful, there's a link in the chat now that my team is pasting in. Or just reply to the follow-up email that you're going to get, and we'll get those set up. But if you would like to book a meeting, yeah, click the Calendly link in the chat, and one of our skilled learning consultants will reach out to you. So yeah, that's all that I've got for you today. And now, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. That was a quite insightful session, I would say. We'll now request the audience to please drop in their questions, any doubts regarding the program, or maybe the curriculum that we offer, the certifications that we offer. Please feel free to reach out and drop in your questions in the Q&A panel or chat box. We'll take them one by one. I do have certain questions regarding the recording. Yes, we'll be sharing the recording and other relevant resources with you shortly. Also, you'll be receiving your participation certificates once the webinar is over. So do share it on LinkedIn as well and tag AIerts. We'll be very happy to engage. I have also shared James' LinkedIn ID in the chat box. If you would like to connect with him one-on-one and have a discussion further, please feel free to reach out to him, or you can book a direct meeting with us. I have already shared the link with you in the chat box. So with that, James, I think we come towards an end of the session. We do not have any specific questions as of now, but definitely if you want, if you guys go through our website and you come across certain doubts or questions, please let us know. We'll be very happy to assist each one of you. Thank you once again.